Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be trying something new. It's called Take 5, and basically what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to take a fairly complicated issue and try to explain it in 5 minutes or less, which is going to be really freaking difficult for me because I'm long-winded and don't know how to shut up sometimes. But I'm thinking that if I'm over the time limit, then maybe people can suggest punishments or something down in the comment. I don't know, it could be interesting. And by interesting, I mean terrifying. Anyway, if you have any ideas for topics that you'd like me to cover in this new segment, let me know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, don't forget to like and subscribe. So today I'm going to be starting with a somewhat controversial topic, at least according to the YouTube algorithm, which is the transgender community. Specifically what it means to be transgender, certain myths about the transgender community, and that sort of thing. It's a topic that's near and dear to my heart for a number of reasons, and as I've been talking to my family and friends about it, I've noticed that a lot of people, even the most well-meaning, supportive people, get stuff wrong about the transgender community. So I'd like to make a sort of educational video to clear up some of those misconceptions. Today I'll be specifically focusing on binary trans people, which are people who were assigned male at birth but identify as female, or vice versa, assigned female at birth but identify as male. Lots of people, including me, consider non-binary people to be under the trans umbrella, but that's a topic for a whole another video. It's going to be hard enough keeping this one under 5 minutes. Anyway, let's get this timer started. When a baby is born, a doctor will look between a baby's legs and usually say, it's a boy or it's a girl. And they get it right about 99% of the time, because for the majority of people, what's between someone's legs matches what's between their ears. If that happens to be you, that means you are cisgender. But some people's brains don't match up with their external appearance. They might look like a guy externally, but they'll have a girl's brain. Or they might look like a girl externally, but they have a guy's brain. These people are transgender. Now, it's really a bit more complicated than that. Neuroscience is an incredibly complex field, studying an incredibly complex organ in an incredibly complex species of primates, us, that aren't as sexually dimorphic as we sometimes like to think. But studies have shown that the brains of transgender women are more similar to the brains of cisgender women, and that the brains of transgender men are more similar to the brains of cisgender men. In other words, trans people are the gender that they say they are on a biological, neurological level. And when a person's brain doesn't match up with their body, it can create a profound sense of discomfort that's called dysphoria. There's an ongoing debate within the trans community about whether or not you need dysphoria to be transgender, and that's something that I'm definitely going to cover in a later video. But most trans people do experience dysphoria, and for the purpose of this video, we're going to move forward with the assumption that most trans people you will encounter will likely have experienced some form of dysphoria in their lives. Now, speaking from personal experience, on days when my dysphoria is really bad, it causes my chest to tighten, I ache from head to toe, and I really struggle to get out of bed and just function. I found that a lot of cis people I know tend to think that dysphoria is at worst a minor inconvenience, if it exists at all. But really, it impacts the quality of life of trans people to the point where the suicide rate in the transgender community is so high, especially for trans people who don't have supportive friends and family. So if you know a trans person, please make sure that they know that they are loved and valued and respected, because just hearing that can mean the world to someone. Trans or not. Now, when it comes to treatment for gender dysphoria, there's pretty much only one solution, which is transitioning. Transitioning is the process of moving from the gender that you're perceived as to the gender that you wish to be perceived as, the gender that you are. There isn't one correct way to transition, but generally speaking, transition follows under one of 3 umbrellas: social transition, medical transition, and legal transition. Generally speaking, social transitioning is step 1. That's when you start telling people what name you want to be called, what pronouns you want people to use for you. This is often when people start dressing as their gender. They might start experimenting with makeup if they're trans women, or if they just think that makeup is cool, and stuff like that. Next is medical transition, which typically involves starting HRT or hormone replacement therapy and sometimes surgery. HRT is basically the medical induction of a second puberty that will give people some of the desired physical characteristics of their gender. So trans women would go on testosterone blockers and estrogen, and they would develop breasts, their skin would soften, they would lose muscle mass, etc., etc. On the other hand, trans men will go on testosterone and they'll gain muscle mass, they'll grow facial hair, their voices will lower, etc. And while I cannot yet speak from personal experience, I've heard that HRT can improve a person's mental health. Not only because of taking a massive step towards being the person they've always wanted to be, but also because male brains function better with testosterone and female brains function better with estrogen. And surgeries are, well, just that, surgeries. Trans people with the means to do so might get surgeries on their face or chest or genitalia. Various surgeries that will make them feel more like the person who they truly are. But just like with social transitioning, this is not mandatory. Some people can't afford it, and some people just don't want it. Lastly, there's legal transitioning, which largely involves changing the gender markers on your passport, birth certificate, driver's license, things like that. That's all I'm going to say on that subject for now, not only because I'm running out of time, but also because I don't know all that much about it just yet. Even if I gave you information about what it's like where I live, it almost certainly wouldn't be the same for you if you happen to live somewhere else. Like I said throughout the video, I can and will go more in depth about various issues related to the trans community, but for now, I'm going to leave it here and call time. Hopefully I kept this monologue under 5 minutes, and hopefully you learned something helpful. If you have any questions about anything I said, please feel free to leave a comment down below, and I'll also be leaving some of the links that I found most helpful down in the description box below. If you have any ideas for future Take 5 segments, please don't hesitate to let me know. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. And once again, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Bye!